From the truckload quoting page within TMS, you can create a new shipment to instantly display your historical lane average alongside all of the market-leading rating intelligence tools. In just a few clicks, you can adjust the quote, add your margin, select your quote response template, and email an official quote right off to the customer from the same page. Request a demo today at tie-software.com to find out how TMS can optimize your quoting process.
Welcome back to another edition of Check Call. Today we are covering the world of sustainability. Don't forget to subscribe to Check Call, the newsletter, on FreightWaves.com if you haven't already. Before we get into our guest interview, there is some news in the world that you should check out. The Mexican state of Nuevo León announced the completion of its Monterrey Metropolitan Area Peripheral Highway project. The road will allow traffic to go around the Mexican city of Monterrey and was constructed primarily to speed up cargo transportation. The highway helps unload 70% of the cargo that does not go to Monterrey and will reach the highway or the airport faster. The Interserrana Highway is a new roadway that will connect central Mexico to Monterrey while also connecting the port of entry in Laredo. This project is scheduled to be completed by the end of the year. With all the growth in Mexico, specifically around Monterrey, it's kind of a no-brainer that this is happening. Officials expect more than 3,500 tractor trailers to use this per day, cutting more than 50 minutes out of transportation times. This week's donor chart of the show is the weighted rejection index. The freight market largely isn't reacting to the close of the first quarter throughout the country. Very few significant changes in capacity are happening, and those that are happening show capacity is loosening. The weighted rejection index is the product of the outbound tender rejection index weekly change and the outbound tender market share, providing signals of significant changes in relative capacity on a weekly basis. In the map, markets shaded in white are those where rejections haven't changed significantly, while those in red indicate a significant decline. Today, we are joined by Nate Greenspan, Senior Product Manager of SaaS Products at Redwood Logistics. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mary.
I am very excited about this. It's April, so we're focusing a lot on sustainability this month because it's Earth Day, Earth Month, and pretty much anytime we get a chance to talk about sustainability, I will force everyone to talk about it and listen to it with me. But before we jump too far into our sustainability rabbit hole today, why don't we get some background on you and kind of how you got started at Redwood?
Thanks again for having me, Mary. I am a product leader at Redwood Logistics. I've been with the company for about 6 years now. And I've had an interesting career growth through my journey at Redwood. I joined as one of our first product people, helping to bring about digital and agile transformation and how we bring some of our products and services to market. And through this journey, have had this incredible experience where I've really been able to come back to something I'm really passionate about, which is the environment and sustainability. I coincidentally, I think, studied environmental sciences in undergrad, was certain I was going to be an environmental lawyer, but ended up doing product and supply chain, really learned to love our industry and space that we're in. And through developing products, we started being asked the question from our customers, how can we support them with their sustainability or diversity or ESG objectives? And I've been really fortunate enough for the last about year and a half now to start answering that question and bringing services forward to our customers in that space.
I think that I think Redwood has done a really good job of it. As someone who, likes to follow with who's developing sustainability tech, Redwood always comes out swinging pretty hard. Not going to lie on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll say it is definitely something from Redwood that there's a cultural push to do that and bring these kind of services to our customers and to act sustainably and responsibly ourselves. There's, it is Earth Day this month, and we're looking to do an event where we're purchasing trees in the honor and the name of all of our customers as an Earth Day event. So we're continuing to grow in our own ESG activities, but even from top down, from Mark Yeager, our CEO, and his vision for what we need to be doing as a company. Definitely looking to really push the envelope on what are table stakes and what is cutting edge for being sustainable, being responsible, not just ourselves, but for our partners.
I like that because the industry has to have that person that's pushing everyone to be better and driving everyone to, meet some of these sustainability goals because we have to start meeting them because we do. But jumping in, what kind of role do logistics service providers have in improving as a shipper's sustainability metrics, and kind of what way can your 3PL, 4PL, any type of your logistics service provider, how can they help shippers achieve those sustainability goals?
Yeah, it's the right question to start with. And I think Redwood being a modern 4PL and having started really through 3PL services, I want to start just by, what is 3PL, what is 4PL, and how can we help our customers with those goals? Because I think 4PL is one of those really squishy, malleable terms that we love to use because it has a purpose. So when I hear 4PL and I think about it in the context of Redwood and where we've evolved from, it is and evolved from through having these deep and long-standing relationships with many of our shipper customers. It's when you start to expand your services further upstream and further downstream in the supply chain, uh, fully integrating those supply chain operations and managing those resources across the complete network from the supply side through to the delivery or even reverse logistics side, and being a highly technically enabled, connected single source of contact for our customers. So in all that context, 4PLs can provide a holistic approach to sustainability that takes into account the entire supply chain. And when doing so in the frame and scope of sustainability, there's a lot of opportunity to support sustainability objectives, ESG objectives. 4PLs or transportation providers are able to leverage their expertise and their technology largely to identify optimization opportunities. There's the more traditional ways that can work. We're familiar with the things, right? Like consolidation of loads, removing empty miles, modal conversion. Those are things that are essential, need to keep happening, that any transportation partner can provide. I think going a step further is looking at the entire network distribution. When establishing facilities, how can we optimize the geographic positions or regions of those facilities? And also, I think being a part of that transportation provider selection, or identifying who your brokers, who your final mile partners are, especially as we're moving more towards e-commerce being the norm and the Amazon effect. I think all of those, especially with the expertise in tech enablement, will ultimately be able to provide emissions savings and cost savings for shippers.
I think that that's some of those things that, I was talking to someone that works in like purchasing and supply chain at a shipper. They do a lot of manufacturing. And I was just casually mentioning some of the SEC is probably going to come out with some regulations for publicly traded companies and, on just how to report it and everything like that. And they're like, "Oh, what? Like, what do you mean? How do I report it? Like, what do I have to start tracking?" And I was like, "Well, you're not doing anything about this right now?" And they're like, "No, why would we?" And I was like, okay. So I think there's a huge hole in the supply chain world that across all different types of shippers or anything like that they just don't know. And I think that's really where, your 3PL, 4PL, anyone that comes in and is helping you with your logistics, I think that's where they need to be, that expert and say, hey, we see that this is happening. Let's start just first of all, capture it, get a baseline, and then here's some really simple ways that we can do it, whether it's just something to, maybe instead of sending an LTL truck out every day, just maybe send a full truckload out every single day to maybe maximize your bang for your buck. And just stuff like that where I think it's just, there's so many shippers out there that don't even know that this is like coming or haven't been paying attention to it or don't think it's serious. But no, I definitely think there is a huge market and a huge future in at least just trying to get the baseline of this carbon capturing down. And I think that, everyone, first of all, I think everyone should be doing it, but
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of educating shippers that is involved in this. And at times, if I'm having a conversation with a global Fortune 100 company, they may educate me on certain terminology because Europe, with some of their regulation, I believe that it's the CSRD that is further ahead than the North American regulations that we're still waiting to see what's going to happen with the SEC proposal. Just like a lot of our terms in freight, like 4PL is malleable, so are these proposals. So until we see and really know what it's going to look like, I totally agree with you, Mary. Uh, Companies are figuring it out, and that's where I think I always think the two things that companies need to be doing is one, focusing on their technology, two, focusing on their partners. With those two things in place, you can be more adaptable to whatever's going to come our way, whether it's an SEC proposal, whether it's if you're private and it's a PE firm that has some expectations on you, or if it's state regulation, right? Washington State is imposing this cap and trade regulation. So I think all of these things are going to end up playing a role.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just a matter of time. And I don't know, I'm excited to see what happens there. But kind of what specific metrics should maybe a shipper what specific metrics should a shipper be asking their logistics service provider for to kind of track and report on? Or should shippers just kind of start that conversation saying like, hey, what should we be looking at for this?
Different companies are at different places on their journey. And something that we say at Redwood is we meet shippers where they're at on their sustainability journey. And we really mean that in a number of ways. And when I think about in a metric tracking capacity, a lot of companies who have sustainable objectives. These are some that maybe are already educated. When I go in a conversation with them, I don't have to explain the difference between scope 1 and 2 and 3 emissions, although sometimes talking with the logistics director, we do need to start at that level. Totally fair and understandable, because this is emissions, not logistics, cost savings. But when we start these conversations, a lot of the time companies are already looking at their own energy consumption, like their utility bills, their own manufacturing emissions or emissions from the production of their goods. So a lot of the more scope 1 or scope 2 category emissions, they're already measuring. Now, if they're not, a 4PL or a transportation partner could support them in starting those kind of activities, whether directly or through consultative partnership, where a transportation partner, I think, needs to, at least by table stakes, be providing some level of service is on the emissions through the actual warehouse operations. If that's a part of what's being managed, that could come down to the equipment, to the forklift level of those facilities, which is a real conversation about moving forklifts all to EV. And that's an easy low-hanging fruit tactic, through to where I think there's a high desire to continue moving the football is the actual optimization of logistics movements. I think we need to move to a place where measuring your logistics emissions becomes table stakes, and then being able to provide services to reduce those is something that a more advanced, through their tech and expertise, partner is able to provide. At the end of the day, I think this can position shippers to be more competitive, including the transportation part of themselves naturally, but thinking about our customers, they're looking to create more of a brand reputation to win over the sentiment of more eco-conscious consumers. And this is a way that they can win in doing so while staying more focused on their own core competencies.
Oh, I think that brings up a great point. Like, you know, you don't have to you don't have to like reinvent the entire wheel. Just take a look at your existing wheel and find out ways that you can optimize it and make it a little bit better. And there might not even be any change that you have to make. It's just about identifying those things and saying, okay, well, you know, we have to figure out how to make this a little bit better, or if this is how we have to keep it, then that's it. But there's also a lot of quick wins that can happen in there. Like you said, even whether it's from changing your forklifts to electric vehicles, even some of those autonomous electric yard jockeys that just do nothing but bring trailers back and forth. You don't have to worry about like going 300 miles and trying to find a charging station. just charge them up at the end of the day because, they're not going that far. I guess what's the next question or the next thing that kind of goes with it is what role does technology play in all of this? Like what it's more than it's 2023. We're more than just a supply chain run on Excel. So what form of technology can, shippers really harness or 3PLs really harness to help with these carbon emission trackings and, ultimately help their shippers the most at the end of the day?
There are suites of technology that's available out there. And depending on your goals, I do, when I have conversations with shippers, always want to start with understanding what are your objectives, which as much as I would love to hear every shipper say, I have some science-based targeted initiative to reduce my emissions 50% by 2030, that's not everyone's always there, because what kind of technology you want to bring to the table might vary. But let's say that you are working with a shipper who's asking us, how can you help us in hitting emissions reductions targets? Then it always starts, and this even goes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago with measuring. What are the metrics and measuring your emissions? So there are tools out there like what Redwood just brought to market, Redwood Hyperion, which we just launched on April 14th. Was something we were super excited to finally reach that milestone to make available to all of our customers or any shipper who we aren't working with today who's interested in measuring their emissions. And through this, we're able to have a tech-enabled, integrated method to bring your shipment data, to kind of translate that shipment data into emissions data and make that a part of your control tower view. I think that there's other metrics that are really going to matter, like, for example, supplier scorecarding comes to mind. A lot of organizations are trying to both mitigate their scope 3 emissions, which comes through their supply chain, as well as the risks that can be associated with their transportation partners, the brokers they work with, suppliers, et cetera. So I think when we talk metrics, it's the technology to measure your emissions, as well as other metrics like around scorecarding. And there's technology, there's ESG software out there to be able to handle some of these more kind of sustainability focused metrics, but bringing it all back into our world, supply chain, having an enterprise TMS, having integrated capabilities, having emissions accounting technology, those are what matter. And Redwood, with our proprietary integration platform, Redwood Connect, also a product that I was able to work on for a handful of years and believe really provides a single source of connectivity across a supply chain. It's really one of our secret weapons as a 4PL, and provides a lot of value to our shipper customers. But this allows to bring the entire supply chain together so that we're able to then bear those metrics back to make decision making a little bit cleaner, to be able to ultimately make an impact on freight. Of course, that includes sustainability.
Well, first of all, Redwood seems to have the answer to everything. You got a connection integration software, you got a sustainability software. It all just comes back to Redwood. But outside of that, I mean, you bring up some great points. These are some things that, 3PLs and shippers alike need to start thinking about and having, in a perfect world, we would love some science-based goals for everybody. Sign me up. Let's start there. But in reality, not everyone's going to start there. So it's really good to just, get an understanding, because every shipper is different. That's why there's so many different pieces of software and technology that are there to truly help that company or that business, do business the way that they want to, and to have a truly customized workflow and approach. So we are almost out of time, but this is the question that everyone that comes on the show has to answer. And I'm very excited for this because everyone from Chicago always has very strong feelings on this question. So, is a hot dog a sandwich?
I came ready to answer this, Mary. And with no further ado, my grandfather started the Chicago hot dog. In a sense. I don't want to overstate claims here, okay? But he started one of the original Chicago hot dog franchises. It's called Irving's. And so if you're from Chicago, if you're coming around Chicago. The original location still exists in Wilmette, but I grew up making hot dogs behind the counter at my dad's restaurant. Okay, so I have feelings about this.
I love it. I mean, like, you're the most uniquely qualified person to pass judgment on this question.
Well, you're not going to love my answer because I think that you're in the not a sandwich camp. But when you're in the restaurant biz and you're talking about hot dogs, you're ordering sandwiches and you're talking about sandwiches. If it's a hot dog, if it's a gyro, if it's a burger, if it's a chicken sandwich, when you start talking salads, not a sandwich. Soups, not a sandwich. Hot dogs, sandwich.
All right. I mean, I guess I am firmly not a sandwich because, again, when you go to a deli, you're not going to see a hot dog on the menu. But I do hear your concern and your considerations, and I will take it under extreme advisement at the top because you are a hot dog legacy. So who am I to say that a hot dog is? Who am I to pass judgment on a hot dog when I didn't have a family that created hot dogs?
As much as I love the question, as long as you don't put ketchup on it, sandwich, not a sandwich, you're good by me, but sandwich.
Why are you so staunchly anti-ketchup?
Come on. Because you got to get your Chicago dog. It's the celery salt, the kraut, your mustard, your pickle, your sport pepper.
Okay, well, for those of us that don't live in Chicago, mustard and ketchup are staples. Like when I go to the baseball game, there's a mustard, ketchup. There's a mayo thing, which I once saw someone put mayo on a hot dog, and that did disturb me in a deep level. But yeah, so
The Belgium style dog right there.
so if anyone wants to reach out about some Redwood Hyperion, some sustainability goals, or to maybe take on your take on a hot dog, where can they find you outside the show?
Happy to have any of those conversations, freight, sustainability, hot dog. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can also definitely reach out to Redwood through our website, and you can go to redwoodlogistics.com/Hyperion to get more information on our new sustainability offerings.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks, Mary.
Find Check Call the Podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to check out all the other amazing FreightWaves podcasts, such as At Your Doorstep and Put That Coffee Down. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/checkcall. See you on the internet.